All right, let's get right into it. We're about to pull back the curtain on one of our most familiar institutions to reveal a hidden world of artificial intelligence, robotics, and some seriously big data. So welcome. This is our explainer on the secret, high-tech life of the modern library. No, really, just for a second. What pops into your head? Is it that distinct smell of old paper, the thump-thump of a date stamp, or maybe just quiet? Well, whatever picture you have in your mind right now, trust me, it's about to get a massive upgrade. Because this is the new reality. The library has completely morphed from, a quiet warehouse for books into this incredibly complex digital ecosystem. The mission is still the same, of course. It's all about getting you access to information, but the tools they're using to do it are straight out of science fiction. So where does this whole revolution even begin? Well, believe it or not, it starts with the physical objects, the books themselves. The technology is literally hiding in plain sight, and it's called RFID. Now, the most important part of this whole definition is that last phrase, no line of sight needed. You know how with a barcode you have to get it lined up just right with the scanner? RFID doesn't care about that. It uses radio waves. It can see right through a book cover. It can read a whole stack of books at once. It's a total game changer. And here's basically how it works. A tiny, paper-thin tag gets put inside a book. Then, when you bring that book near a reader, say at a self-checkout machine or a security gate, the reader sends out a little radio signal. That signal wakes up the tag, which then shouts back its unique ID, and boom, the library's system knows exactly what to do. So what's the big deal? What does this actually mean for you? Well, it means you can check out a stack of 10 books in about 2 seconds flat. It's the magic behind those huge robotic sorting machines that process thousands of returned books an hour. But maybe most importantly, it frees up librarians from the mind-numbing task of scanning barcodes so they can do what they do best, actually helping you find what you need. Of course, this immediately brings up a huge question: privacy. Could someone just walk by and scan your bag to see what you're reading? The library world takes this incredibly seriously. They make sure to use tags with a very short range and really push for systems that protect your confidentiality, making absolutely sure the smart library doesn't turn into a surveillance library. Okay, so the tech you can physically see, that's just the tip of the iceberg. To really understand the power behind the modern library, we have to go a layer deeper, into the invisible digital engine that runs absolutely everything. And to do that, we got to get on the same page with 3 key ideas. First up, you've got digitization. This is the foundation, ground zero. It's simply the act of taking a physical thing, a book, an old map, a photograph, and creating a digital copy, like a PDF or a JPEG file. That's it. Then you have the next level, digitalization. This is all about using that digital information to do the old things, but in a new, much more efficient way. The classic example is replacing that clunky old card catalog with a searchable online database. It's the same job, just with way better technology. But this last stage, this is the real goal: digital transformation. This isn't just about being more efficient. It's a fundamental ground-up reinvention. It's about asking, okay, now that we have all these powerful digital tools, what entirely new services can we offer? How can we completely change the way we serve our community? And if you want to see what that looks like at scale, just look at this number. The New York Public Library's digital branch offers over 900,000 items. We're talking ebooks, audiobooks, streaming movies, all available 24/7 to anyone with a library card anywhere on the planet. That is pure digital transformation in action. And how is this even possible? Well, the library's brain, its entire central nervous system, has moved into the cloud. So instead of a dusty old server room humming away in the basement, they're using these massive, scalable platforms like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. This gives them unbelievable power and flexibility without the massive cost of building it all themselves. And now we go even deeper, because libraries aren't just using technology, they are actively involved in the science of how we organize and measure knowledge itself. It's a field called bibliometrics. And listen, this is not some new fad. This has been developing for nearly 100 years. It started with early mathematical laws describing how scientists publish, then came the invention of citation indexing, all leading up to the modern metrics we use today. It's been a long, systematic effort to basically map out the structure of science. So one of the most important modern metrics you'll hear about is the H-index. Let's make that simple. If a researcher has an H-index of, say, 20, it means they've published 20 papers that have each been cited at least 20 times by other researchers. It's actually a pretty clever way to measure both how much work someone produces and how much that work is actually influencing the field. Okay, so where does all this citation data even come from? Well, these are the three heavyweights. You've got Web of Science, which is kind of the original, highly curated gold standard. Then there's Scopus, which is the biggest database and has way more international sources. And finally, there's Google Scholar, which just casts the widest possible net, though it's a bit less strict on quality control. Librarians and researchers live in these tools every single day. So you have all this incredible technology, all this data. What's next? Well, the library of tomorrow is being shaped right now by these huge, ongoing debates about copyright, about open access, and about ethics. At the heart of it all is a legal concept that determines what libraries are even allowed to do with copyrighted stuff. In the US, it's called fair use, and it's a flexible, four-part balancing test. But in places like the UK and Canada, it's fair dealing, which is much more rigid. You can only use material for very specific, legally listed reasons. That one difference has enormous consequences for what libraries can legally copy and share. Now, to help navigate all this, we have tools like Creative Commons. Think of this table as a cheat sheet. It shows how creators can give everyone permission ahead of time to use their work. A CC BY license is the most open you can get, while a CC BY NC and D is the most restrictive. And libraries, they are huge champions of these licenses, trying to build a world with more open knowledge for everybody. So if we put all of this together, what does the library of the pretty near future actually look like? Well, expect AI to be baked into everything, from search to cataloging. Expect to see immersive virtual reality learning spaces. And expect the role of a librarian to totally transform into something more like a data scientist, a tech expert, and a community developer all rolled into one. Which brings us to our final and maybe most important question. All of this incredible technology, the RFID, the AI, the user analytics, it all creates a massive amount of data. And as our libraries evolve into these intelligent, data-rich environments, the single biggest challenge will be harnessing all that power while fiercely protecting one of the library's oldest and most sacred values, your right to read, learn, and be curious in private.